What happens when a normally calm, charming movie star walks onto a daytime talk show expecting light conversation, and instead finds himself pushed into a heated debate that no one in the studio saw coming? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. Whoopi leans forward in her chair with a smile that signals the show is officially underway, the audience still buzzing from the commercial break. All right, we're back. Our next guest is someone you've seen on the big screen for years. Actor, producer, and yes, internet boyfriend to a lot of people, she adds with a chuckle, letting the audience laugh along. Chris Pine is here. The applause swells, loud and warm. Chris walks out, waving casually, dressed relaxed but polished, that familiar half-smile already in place. He hugs Whoopi, nods to Joy, Sunny, Sarah, and Alyssa as he takes his seat. Chris laughs lightly as the applause fades. Wow, that's a very generous welcome. Thank you. Joy tilts her head, eyes him playfully. You look comfortable. That usually means you think you're safe. Chris raises his eyebrows. Should I not feel safe? The audience laughs. Whoopi jumps in quickly. You're safe, you're safe. We're just talking today. You've got a new film out. You're producing more. You've been very open lately about stepping back from certain parts of Hollywood. That's been interesting to people. Chris nods. Yeah, I think a lot of us are rethinking things. What we say yes to, what we give our energy to. Sunny crosses her legs, watching him carefully. You've talked in interviews about feeling pressure to speak on social issues now more than ever. That actors are expected to have opinions on everything. Chris exhales softly. It's complicated. I think having a platform comes with responsibility, but I also think there's a line where it becomes performative instead of meaningful. There's a small murmur from the audience. Joy leans in immediately. But isn't that a convenient thing to say when the issues don't directly affect you? The smile on Chris's face tightens just slightly. I wouldn't say that. I think it's about knowing when you're actually helping versus when you're just talking. Joy doesn't let go. But silence can also be a statement, Chris. A beat. The audience senses it too. Chris nods slowly. It can be. And sometimes speaking without understanding can be harmful. Sarah jumps in, trying to soften the moment. I think what Chris is saying is that there's nuance, right? That not every celebrity statement moves the needle. Joy turns towards Sarah, then back to Chris. But you've spoken out before. So why now this hesitation? Chris shifts in his seat. It's not hesitation. It's growth. I've said things in the past that I later realized were oversimplified. I don't want to do that anymore. The applause is scattered, unsure. Whoopi watches carefully, hands folded. Joy, let him finish his thought. Joy shrugs. I'm letting him. I'm just asking. Chris looks directly at Joy now, still calm but more focused. And I'm answering honestly. Sunny interjects. But do you understand why people feel disappointed when someone with your influence chooses to step back instead of stepping up? Chris nods again. I do. And I respect that feeling. I just don't think constant commentary equals real action. Joy lets out a short laugh. That sounds like a Hollywood answer. The audience reacts with an audible, oh. Chris blinks, surprised, then smiles faintly. I don't know what that means. Joy presses. It means safe. Carefully worded. Non-committal. Chris leans back, folds his hands. Or it means I'm being careful because words matter. There's a pause. Whoopi shifts in her seat. All right. Let's keep it moving without talking over each other. But Joy isn't done. Chris, you benefit from a system that amplifies your voice. Don't you think there's an obligation to use it loudly? Chris's smile fades a notch. I think there's an obligation to use it responsibly. Loud isn't always responsible. A few claps break out. Others stay silent. The split is noticeable. Joy raises her chin. So who decides what's responsible? You. Chris meets her gaze. No. My conscience. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Sunny glances at Whoopi. Sarah's eyes widen slightly. Joy lets out a breathy laugh. That's a very privileged answer. Chris's jaw tightens. I don't think conscience is a privilege. The studio goes quiet for half a second too long. Whoopi steps in. Okay, we're getting somewhere here. Chris turns slightly toward Whoopi. I want to be clear. I'm not saying people shouldn't speak. I'm saying not everyone needs to speak on everything. Joy crosses her arms. And I'm saying when you don't speak, someone else pays the price. Chris responds calmly, but there's a firmness now. And sometimes when you speak without understanding, someone else pays the price too. The audience erupts into mixed applause and gasps. Sarah leans forward. This is clearly something you feel strongly about. Chris nods. I do, because I've been wrong before. And I've learned from that. Joy tilts her head. So you're saying activists, journalists, hosts like us, we're doing it wrong? Chris shakes his head. No, I'm saying different roles exist. And mine doesn't automatically make me an authority. Sunny interjects quickly. But you influence culture. Chris looks at her. So do you. So does everyone in this room. There's a ripple through the audience. Someone claps loudly. Another voice says, wow. Whoopi raises her hand. All right, we're going to take a breath. Chris chuckles softly, trying to ease the tension. I swear I didn't come here to argue. Joy looks at him, half smiling, half challenging. Sometimes the truth argues back. The audience laughs nervously. The tension hasn't broken, but it's alive now, undeniable, crackling in the air as the cameras keep rolling and everyone realizes this conversation has gone somewhere no one planned. Whoopi exhales into the moment, giving a small shake of her head as the audience settles. Okay. Everybody breathe. This is why people watch live television, she says, half joking, half managing the room. Chris, you came in calm. Joy came in curious. Now we're in it. Chris lets out a quiet laugh, rubbing his hands together. That's fair. Joy doesn't smile back. I am curious, but I'm also concerned. Because when people with massive platforms start saying maybe I shouldn't speak, the people without platforms hear that loud and clear. Chris nods, slower this time. I hear that, truly. But I think there's a difference between stepping back and stepping aside. I haven't stepped aside. Sunny leans forward. Then what does stepping back look like for you, specifically? Chris considers it. The pause feels longer on camera. It looks like listening more. Supporting organizations privately. Funding things without attaching my name to it. Joy's eyebrows lift. Why privately? Chris looks at her. Because not everything needs a press release. The audience reacts, some applause, some murmurs. Joy gestures with her hands. But how do we know you're doing any of that? Chris smiles thinly. You don't. A ripple goes through the studio. Whoopi raises her eyebrows. That's honest. Joy presses immediately. But see, that's the issue. Trusting that powerful people are doing the right thing behind closed doors hasn't exactly worked out historically. Chris inhales, visibly steadying himself. I agree. And I'm not asking for trust. I'm explaining my choice. Sarah cuts in gently. It feels like this conversation is really about optics versus impact. Chris points at her. Exactly. Joy shakes her head. No, it's about accountability. Chris turns back to Joy. Accountability to whom? Joy doesn't hesitate. The public. Chris responds evenly. I'm accountable for my actions. Not my volume. The audience reacts again louder. Someone whistles. Whoopi leans forward. All right, let's not make this a boxing match. Sunny glances between them. Chris, can I ask you something directly? Chris nods. Please. Sunny's tone sharpens just a bit. When fans come to you and say, your voice matters to me, what do you say to them? Chris doesn't answer right away. He looks down for a second, then back up. I say thank you. And I tell them their voice matters too. Joy scoffs softly. That sounds like deflection. Chris looks genuinely surprised. It's not meant to be. Joy leans in. But do you see how that could feel dismissive? Chris straightens. No, I see it as empowering. The audience splits again, some clapping, some shaking heads. Sarah raises her hand slightly. This is interesting because it feels generational too. Joy turns toward her. What do you mean? Sarah explains. There's a shift happening where younger audiences are skeptical of celebrity activism. They want authenticity, not slogans. Joy looks back at Chris. And you think silence reads as authenticity? Chris responds quickly. No, I think intention reads as authenticity. Sunny tilts her head. But intention isn't visible. Chris meets her gaze. Neither is conscience. That doesn't make it irrelevant. The studio grows tense again. Whoopi looks out toward the audience. Y'all good? Everybody still with us? Laughter breaks out, easing things for half a second. Joy turns back to Chris, voice firm. Let me ask it another way. Do you think public figures have gotten too comfortable opting out? Chris shakes his head. I think some have gotten too comfortable opting in without consequence. A sharp reaction ripples through the crowd. Sunny's eyes widen slightly. Sarah lets out a quiet wow. Joy pauses, then smiles tightly. So now we're calling people irresponsible. Chris remains calm. I'm calling myself irresponsible in the past. Joy studies him. That's not what you said. Chris doesn't back down. It's what I meant. There's a moment where neither of them speaks. The silence feels heavy. Whoopi leans back, arms crossed, letting it play out. Joy breaks it. You know, Chris, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of actors come through here. And sometimes it feels like when the questions get uncomfortable, the philosophy comes out. The audience murmurs knowingly. Chris nods. That's fair criticism. Joy raises an eyebrow. Is it? Yes, Chris says simply. That catches Joy off guard for a split second. She blinks. Okay. Chris continues, more openly now. I'm not here to dodge discomfort. I'm here to explain that I'm uncomfortable with pretending certainty. Sunny jumps in. But the world is burning. People don't have the luxury of uncertainty. Chris looks at her. Neither do I. I just experience it differently. Joy shakes her head. That's the privilege part. Chris exhales slowly. Privilege exists whether I speak or not. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Someone claps hard. Another voice says, That's true. Whoopi raises her hand. Hold on. Hold on. Joy turns toward Whoopi. You don't think that's dismissive? Whoopi considers it. I think he's being honest about something people don't like to admit. Joy sighs. Honesty without action is noise. Chris responds immediately. Action without thought is noise too. The room erupts. Applause, gasps, overlapping reactions. Sarah leans forward, eyes wide. Sunny presses her lips together. Whoopi laughs despite herself. Okay. We're officially there. Chris chuckles softly, then stops himself. I don't want this to sound like I'm lecturing. I'm not. Joy tilts her head. Then what are you doing? Chris meets her gaze. Defending my right to choose how I engage. Joy's voice hardens. And I'm defending the people who don't get that choice. The tension lands. The audience quiets, feeling the weight of it. Chris nods slowly. That matters. I don't disagree. Joy looks surprised. You don't? Chris shakes his head. No. I just don't think we fixed that by forcing everyone into the same lane. A long beat. Whoopi looks at the camera, then back at them. We're going to need to take a quick break in a minute, but this conversation isn't going anywhere. Joy glances at Chris. You sure about that? Chris smiles faintly. I'm still here. The audience applauds, not loudly but steadily, as the tension hangs in the air, unresolved, charged, and very much alive as the show inches toward the breaking point. The applause fades as the show comes back from break, that familiar hum of anticipation filling the studio. Whoopi looks straight into the camera for a beat, then turns back to the table. All right, we're back. And clearly, this conversation struck a nerve. The audience claps again, louder this time. Chris sits a little straighter in his chair now, hands clasped, expression composed but alert. Joy adjusts her glasses, her posture firm, like she's ready to finish a thought she's been holding since before the break. Whoopi gestures between them. Chris Pine is still with us. Joy Behar is still with us, she adds dryly, earning laughter. And we're talking about responsibility, voice, and what the public expects from people in the spotlight. Joy jumps in immediately. I want to go back to something you said before the break, Chris. You said forcing everyone into the same lane isn't the answer. Chris nods. Yes. Joy leans forward. But when you're driving a Ferrari on a highway other people are walking on, your lane affects everyone. The audience reacts with an impressed murmur. Chris smiles politely. That's a good line. Joy doesn't smile back. It's a real situation. Chris takes a breath. I don't disagree with the imbalance. I disagree with the idea that visibility automatically equals wisdom. Sunny tilts her head. But doesn't visibility equal influence, whether you like it or not? Chris responds quickly. Yes, and influence without reflection can be reckless. Joy lets out a sharp laugh. So now you're worried about recklessness. Chris looks at her calmly. I am. Joy folds her arms. Funny how that concern shows up when people start asking harder questions. A few audience members clap. Someone else groans. The tension splits the room. Whoopi raises her hand slightly. Joy, let him answer. Chris nods gratefully. I think the harder questions are the ones you ask yourself when the cameras are off. Joy fires back. But we're on camera. That's the job. Chris meets her gaze. It's yours. Mine is acting. The audience reacts sharply, gasps, then murmurs. Sunny looks surprised. Sarah's eyebrows shoot up. Joy's eyes narrow. So when you come on this show, what exactly do you think you're here for? Chris doesn't hesitate. To talk about my work. To share my perspective. Not to be treated as a moral authority. Joy points slightly. No one called you a moral authority. Chris replies evenly. But I'm being challenged as if I claimed to be one. Sunny interjects. Chris, to be fair, you did make public statements that positioned you in these conversations. Chris nods. I did. And I'm owning that. I'm also saying I don't want to keep repeating the same cycle just to meet expectations. Joy leans back. Expectations from who? Chris answers softly. From everyone. The audience quiets. That answer lands heavier than the louder moments. Joy studies him. Do you think you owe your audience anything beyond entertainment? Chris pauses. The silence stretches. I think I owe them honesty. Joy shakes her head. That's not enough. Chris looks genuinely curious. What would be enough? Joy's voice sharpens. Using your platform when it matters. Chris responds just as firmly. It always matters. That's the problem. The audience reacts again, a mix of applause and murmurs. Whoopi exhales, rubbing her hands together. Okay. Let's slow this down. Sarah leans in. Can I ask something without it becoming World War III? Laughter breaks the tension slightly. Sarah turns to Chris. Do you worry that by choosing not to speak publicly, you're letting louder, less thoughtful voices fill the space? Chris considers that carefully. Yes, I do. Joy jumps on it. Then why step back? Chris meets her eyes. Because sometimes the loudest voice in the room shouldn't be mine. That gets a strong reaction. Applause swells. A few audience members stand briefly before sitting back down. Joy looks unconvinced. That sounds noble, but it also sounds convenient. Chris exhales. I can live with that perception. Sunny frowns. But can the people affected live with it? Chris nods slowly. That's the question that keeps me up at night. The studio goes quiet. Even Joy pauses. Whoopi looks out at the audience. Y'all hearing this? The audience claps, this time more unified. Joy breaks the silence. Let me ask you something personal then. Chris nods cautiously. Okay. Joy's tone softens, but only slightly. Do you ever worry that this stance protects you more than it helps anyone else? Chris answers honestly. Yes. Joy raises her eyebrows. Then why stick with it? Chris looks at her, voice steady but emotional now. Because every other version of myself felt dishonest. That lands hard. The audience responds with a low, sustained murmur. Sunny presses her lips together. Sarah nods slowly. Joy sighs. I don't think you're a bad guy. Chris smiles faintly. I appreciate that. Joy continues. But good intentions don't change systems. Chris responds gently. Neither do sound bites. A ripple of reaction moves through the crowd. Whoopi chuckles despite herself. Lord. Joy turns to Whoopi. You really okay with this? Whoopi shrugs. I'm okay with people thinking out loud. Joy looks back at Chris. That's a luxury. Chris nods. Thinking should never be. Sunny jumps in. But action matters more than thought. Chris responds immediately. Action informed by thought matters most. The audience applauds again. The rhythm of clapping grows stronger, then fades. Joy looks at Chris closely now, not combative but searching. Do you understand why people are frustrated with you? Chris nods. Yes. Joy presses. And you're okay with that? Chris takes a breath. I have to be. Joy leans back, shaking her head slowly. That's hard for people to hear. Chris replies quietly. It was hard for me to learn. A long pause follows. Whoopi lets it breathe. No one interrupts. The audience sits in near silence, hanging on every word. Finally, Whoopi speaks. This is one of those moments where nobody's wrong, but nobody's comfortable either. A few audience members clap softly. Joy glances at Chris. I still don't agree with you. Chris smiles gently. I wouldn't expect you to. Joy gives a small nod. But I respect that you're not running from the conversation. Chris nods back. That means something. Sunny exhales. I think what's making this tense is that there's no clean ending to this debate. Whoopi smiles knowingly. Welcome to real life. Laughter breaks out, easing the room just a bit. But the weight of the discussion still hangs in the air. Chris shifts in his seat. If nothing else, I hope people see that disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect. Joy looks at him, then out at the audience. That part I agree with. The audience applauds, louder now, sensing the conversation nearing a turning point. But not a resolution. As the energy in the studio shifts from confrontation to reflection, setting the stage for whatever comes next. The applause rolls on a little longer than usual as the conversation slows. The kind of applause that isn't about a punchline but about release. Whoopi waits it out, hands folded, scanning the table. All right, she says finally, voice steady. We're coming up on the end here. Chris nods, looking both relieved and thoughtful. Joy adjusts in her seat, exhaling through her nose like she's been holding something in for a while. Whoopi turns to Chris. Before we wrap, I want to give you space to say whatever you think hasn't been said yet. Chris blinks, surprised by the opening. He takes a moment. I'll just say this. I didn't come here to change anyone's mind. And I don't think I did. But I hope people watching understand that disagreement doesn't mean indifference. And it doesn't mean cowardice either. A wave of applause follows, stronger this time. Chris nods toward the audience in appreciation. Joy watches him closely, then speaks. I still think you underestimate the power you have. Chris turns to her. That's possible. Joy raises an eyebrow. That's it. Chris smiles faintly. I'm open to being wrong. The audience reacts warmly to that. Someone claps loudly from the front row. Sunny jumps in. I will say this, whether people agree with you or not, this conversation is making people uncomfortable. And that usually means it's important. Sarah nods. Yeah, this isn't a soundbite conversation. It's messy. Whoopi chuckles. Baby, most real conversations are. Joy lets out a small laugh despite herself. That's true. Whoopi looks back to Chris. Do you regret coming on today? Chris shakes his head immediately. No. Joy smirks. You say that now. Chris laughs softly. Ask me again in a week. The audience laughs with him. The tension that once crackled now feels looser, but not erased. Whoopi stands slightly from her chair, signaling the wrap. All right. Chris Pine, everybody. The applause swells again, fuller, more unified. Chris stands, nodding, giving a small wave. He leans in to hug Whoopi, then gives Joy a brief, respectful nod. Joy nods back, not warm, not cold, just honest. As Chris exits the stage, the cameras stay on the table. The audience is still buzzing, whispering to each other. Whoopi turns back to the panel. Well, Joy exhales. That was something. Sunny nods. That's going to be talked about. Sarah adds, a lot. Whoopi looks into the camera. And that's okay. The show signs off shortly after, but the moment doesn't end there. By the time the credits roll, phones are already lighting up in the audience. Clips are being shared before people even leave their seats. In the hallway backstage, producers exchange looks, half surprised, half impressed. One of them mutters, "That's going viral." Within minutes, short clips flood social media. One clip shows Joy saying, "That's a very privileged answer." Another shows Chris responding calmly, "Privilege exists whether I speak or not." Captions fly across screens. Chris Pine versus Joy Behar. Unexpected clash on daytime TV. Studio goes silent. Twitter erupts. One side praises Chris for staying composed. He didn't raise his voice once. One post reads, "That's how you disagree." Another says, "He dodged responsibility with philosophy." Others back Joy. "She asked the questions everyone's afraid to ask celebrities," a comment reads. "About time." Another post says, "Joy didn't let him off the hook." Clips rack up millions of views overnight. Hashtags trend. Reaction videos pop up within hours, some applauding the nuance, others demanding clearer stances. By the next morning, entertainment blogs run headlines dissecting every exchange. Chris Pine pushes back on live TV, one reads. Another, Joy Behar sparks heated debate over celebrity responsibility. Chris doesn't tweet. His team releases no statement. That silence becomes part of the conversation too. Joy, meanwhile, addresses it briefly on the next day's show. "We don't have to agree," she says, "but we do have to ask questions." Audience applause follows that line. Industry insiders weigh in. Some praise the show for letting the moment breathe. Others criticize it for being too tense. Ratings spike. Behind the scenes, a staffer mentions that Chris sent a message thanking the hosts for not cutting the conversation short. Another says Joy told producers, "I meant every word." And viewers? They're split but engaged. Comment sections fill with long debates instead of one-liners. People argue, reflect, agree, disagree. Some change their minds. Others don't. But they talk. And that's what lingers most after the episode. Not who won, not who lost, but the fact that no one walked away untouched by it. So now it's your turn. What did you think about Chris Pine and Joy Behar's on-air clash? Who made the stronger case? Or did anyone? Let us know your thoughts. Make sure to share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories, debates, and moments you won't see anywhere else.